show you my first recipe for Canuary. That's right, I am part of Canuary, and so are a lot of other creators. So I'm going to put their links down below this video, and I want you to check them out because every day in January you will be able to access a new, be it pressure canning or water bath canning recipe. I'm very excited for Canuary. And I'm going to kind of pull on my German heritage for this recipe. It comes from the Better Home and Garden canning book here. Canning guide, I guess it's called. And let me give you the title. It is Sweet and Sour Red Cabbage with Apples and Bacon. Doesn't that sound good? Now, this is a pressure canning recipe. This will not work if you only have a water bath canner. But you know, this recipe is one of the reasons to encourage you to start pressure canning if you haven't. Let's get started. So for this recipe, you're going to want bacon, and you only need 12 ounces, not a full pound, and you're going to be cutting it up in pieces. You're going to want 3 cups of, it says lower sodium beef broth. I just got regular beef broth, so that's what I'm using. 2/3 a cup packed brown sugar, 2/3 a cup cider vinegar, and it says 1 tablespoon snipped fresh thyme, and if you have it, fantastic. This time of the year I don't, so 1 teaspoon dried thyme equals about 1 tablespoon fresh. And then you're going to want 2/3 a teaspoon freshly ground black pepper, 3/4 a teaspoon ground allspice, and yeah, hi Xander, knew you had to be in it. 5 pounds of red cabbage, and you see the 2 in the front, they were only a little over 2 pounds a piece, so to be safe I bought another one. But with that 5 pounds of red cabbage, you're going to core it and cut it into 1-inch pieces to be about 16 cups. And you want 4 large cooking apples, and you're going to peel them, core them, and cut those also into 1-inch pieces. And you want 5 cups. And you want 2 medium onions, thinly sliced, only about 1 cup. I think the one in the middle will be plenty, but I have an extra one there just in case. Xander, come on. Okay, time to go. As you know, he loves to photobomb. And you want 1 teaspoon salt. And of course, you're going to need your canning jars. This uses 5 clean quart jars. And you're going to need 5 lids and 5 rings. Okay, there's quite a bit of prep time for this. You know, plan for an hour probably, getting everything cut up the way you need it. I find the easiest way to cut your cabbage is using a ceramic knife or a very sharp knife. And you just want to go through. Okay. And then you can cut your core part off right here. And then I just, you know, not exact inches, right? And then just put it all together, which is so much easier if I could be in front of this as opposed to on the side, so you can see with a camera, but you get the idea. So you're going to end up with about 1-inch pieces. And we want to do that until we have 16 cups. Oops. Can't help but munch on fresh cabbage. So I finished all the prep. I only used those first 2 red cabbages that I showed you that weighed only maybe 2.5. Well, together probably 4.5 pounds. So they weren't 5 pounds, but they still made really more than 16 cups. And maybe it depends on the variety and how big the core is. I don't know, but I only need those 2. And for the onion, I only need the big one. I didn't need the small one. I have plenty sliced up there. And I only used 3 of the Granny Smith apples, but they were pretty large to make the 5 cups of sliced apples. So now we have our vinegar, our brown sugar, and our spices all mixed together. And you'll notice that the apple slices I actually have in the 3 cups of beef broth. I just didn't want them to start turning brown, so I thought that might help. But now, let's get ready and actually make our sweet, sour, red cabbage with apples and bacon. Now, it's going to take some prep time, but while it's prepping, you might want to start heating up your pressure canner, because that will save some time. So I have filled my pressure canner with the required amount of water. You want to do whatever your pressure canner says. I have checked the seal around, added some more lubricant, and made sure that the vent hole was open. And now I'm heating it up, so I'll be putting hot jars into hot liquid. And by preheating, it does save a little time on the pressure cooking. So our first thing is to cook our bacon. Get it all in there. And we want to cook it over medium heat until it gets crisp. Be back when that's done. You want to take your bacon when it gets crisp out. We want to get fat out of it, so we're going to drain it here. But don't throw away your bacon fat. I always keep it in the refrigerator for cooking. I mean, eggs taste absolutely fantastic in that. And of course, greens, you want to have them in bacon fat. I've already drained the broth from my apples and put it in there. And now we're going to add the brown sugar, spices, and our cider vinegar. Now you're just going to want to stir this. You want to cook it until your brown sugar dissolves. Brown sugar and the broth and the spices up to boiling and dissolve the brown sugar. And now it's time to put in the rest of our ingredients. Our apples, our onions, and of course our cabbage. And of course I got some in the back here. I'm telling you, it's really hard to cook when you have a camera in front of your burners. So you can see now I'm using such a big pot. You really need a good sized stock pot for this. We're going to want to mix it up and get it returning to a boil. You want to mix it up really well so you have the bacon, the apples, the cabbage, onions, all mixed well before we go to the next step. Okay, we got all of our prepping done. Now it's time, let's fill up those jars. So we brought the mixture to a boil for a bit, mixed it up really well, and now it's time to fill our jars. You want to dig down to that bottom of the pot so you're getting everything out. And we'll be back when we got the jars filled. So there's just a little bit left over. But what I do with my jars is, see, we can get a little more in. I'll be back when I got them full. Okay, let's do our debubbler. By your debubbler, you might even be able to get more in a jar, but This is pretty good. You want a 1-inch headspace. Now I've moistened this towelette with a little bit of vinegar. We're going to wipe the rims well. And try to have a new spot on the toweling each time. Looks good. Now we're going to put on our lids. Which, isn't it nice that we can find them now? That was something when we couldn't. Okay, we're going to put these on finger tight. And yes, if you're in a male, maybe your fingers are tighter than mine, but don't do them too tight. Okay, we're going to be ready here to put them in the pressure canner. Don't they look lovely? One, two, three, 4, and our last one, 5. Put our lid on. Balance there. And I always just half screw. I want to get it kind of equal when I tighten them up. Okay, we have it nice and screwed on, and now we want to wait until, wow, we're already getting steam. We'll get a little bit stronger steam, and then we're going to time it for 10 minutes before we put on our weight. We'll be back. Okay, you can see my pressure gauge is on 10. It's a jiggling, and now we're going to pressure gauge it for 75 minutes. Now you might ask, why 75 minutes? Anything with a meat for a quart should be 90 minutes. Well, that's not necessarily true. In this case, it said 75 minutes. I'm going to trust it. But if you don't, just do it for 90 minutes. Another 15 minutes is not going to hurt the canned product at all. So be my guest to do 90, but I'm following the recipe, which is 75. Okay, our time is up. I'm going to turn the burner off, and we're going to wait until this dial gets down to 0. Well, we're down to 0, so we can now take our top off here. Take off our weight. Oh, still hear that last bit of air coming out. Going to wait 5 minutes and then pull out my jars. So here they are out of the canner. You can see the beef broth kind of separated on the bottom, but all jars nice on top, all sealed. Now we're going to wait 24 hours, then we'll take off the ring and we'll write on the name and the date these were canned, and then they can go in my pantry. I just wanted to show you that you know, we have a gap here, probably like a 2-inch gap, but it is nothing that you have to be worried about, unless it would be, you know, your fluid would go down to about here, then you might have to worry. And of course, anything above the fluid could turn darker, but with this recipe, I don't think it really matters. But anyway, I wanted to show you that there was less in the jars after they cooled down. But again, it's nothing to worry about. So I just opened a jar. We're going to pour it in right now. I had 1 small jar. And as you can see, it's hard to get things out of it. There we go. Now we have to bring this up to boiling. So it's starting to come up to boil. I'm going to cover it, and we want it to boil for 10 minutes. Every 1,000 of elevation higher, you do an additional minute. Okay, let's take the cover off and dish it up. Well, doesn't that look good? We'll let it cool just a minute and then take a nice big bite. Okay, I've got some bratwurst and some of my red cabbage here. This is really good. Nice alternative to sauerkraut, although I do love sauerkraut. But I hope you make sweet and sour red cabbage with apples and bacon, because boy, is it good. Just got a nice piece of bacon there too. This is really delicious.